The first time he walked into the small diner, he hadn't expected anything extraordinary to happen. As the billionaire, who ran a successful tech empire, walked in, the bustling noise of the diner surrounded him. But amidst the hum of conversations and clinking of cutlery, his mind was far from the busy atmosphere around him. He was tired. Tired of the endless meetings, the constant pressures of managing his companies, and the loneliness that followed him even in a room full of people. He had everything someone could wish for: wealth, fame, and luxury. But despite it all, something important was missing. Every night, he would return to his large mansion, surrounded by riches that didn't bring him any true comfort. The emptiness in his heart was something he could never fill with money or fame. And on this particular night, as he stepped into the diner, the last thing on his mind was that he would meet someone who would change everything. At the counter, there was a young woman with a warm smile, taking orders from the customers. She looked like she had been working all day, but her energy and kindness didn't show any signs of exhaustion. Her name was Lily, and she had been working at the diner for as long as she could remember. She had learned to greet every customer with a smile, no matter how tired or worn out she felt. To her, every person who walked in had a story, and she always made sure to listen. When the billionaire sat down at the counter, he didn't expect much. He ordered his usual drink and sank into the worn-down stool, lost in his own thoughts. But then, Lily came over. She didn't recognize him as a billionaire, and she didn't treat him any differently than any other customer. She asked him how his day had been, and for the first time in a long while, he found himself actually talking about his day. It was a simple conversation, but something about her genuine interest in his words made him feel like he mattered. She listened carefully, and when he mentioned how everything in his life seemed to be about business, she gave a small but thoughtful response. Sometimes, we get so caught up in what we're doing that we forget to live for ourselves, she said, her eyes sincere. That small sentence lingered in his mind long after she had gone back to taking care of other customers. He didn't know what it was, but something about Lily stood out to him. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She wasn't there to get something out of the situation. She was just real. She had the kind of honesty that was rare in his world of constant pretensions and artificial smiles. He knew he wouldn't find that kind of sincerity anywhere else, certainly not in the boardrooms or luxury hotels he frequented. As the evening wore on, he found himself finishing his meal, but he wasn't quite ready to leave. Lily continued to smile, taking orders and chatting with the other customers, but there was something different about the way he felt. He didn't realize it in that moment, but Lily was about to become someone who would change his entire perspective on life. The billionaire returned to the diner the next day, though he didn't know why. He wasn't used to coming back to places or people more than once. His life was a cycle of fast meetings, quick decisions, and fleeting encounters. But something about the diner, and more importantly, something about Lily, made him want to return. When he stepped inside, the familiar warmth of the diner greeted him. The smell of fresh coffee and sizzling pancakes filled the air, and the soft chatter of customers seemed comforting. Lily was behind the counter again, wearing her usual smile, and as soon as she saw him, she nodded in recognition. "Back for more coffee?" she asked playfully as she wiped down the counter. The billionaire smiled, unsure of why he was here, but not wanting to admit he had been thinking about her. "I guess so," he replied, sitting down on the same stool he had occupied the night before. It was awkward at first, but Lily had a way of making things feel natural. She handed him a menu, but he shook his head. "I don't need that," he said. "Just a coffee, thanks." Lily raised an eyebrow, noticing his serious tone, but she didn't press him for details. Instead, she went about her work, taking orders and serving food to other customers. The billionaire found himself watching her every move, noticing the way she worked with precision and care. Despite the long hours she must have worked, there was a calmness in her demeanor, a steadiness he admired. "Your coffee's ready," Lily said, setting a cup down in front of him. The billionaire took a sip and, almost without thinking, started talking. He told her about his day, how the constant stream of emails and meetings drained him. It wasn't like him to open up to anyone, especially not a stranger. But Lily's calm presence made him feel like he could. She listened intently, her eyes focused on him, and after a while she spoke again. "I know how it feels. To be stuck in a loop, feeling like you're just going through the motions." Her words felt familiar. He had been in that place for years, constantly moving but never truly living. "I don't know how to break free from it," he confessed. Lily gave him a soft smile. "Maybe you don't need to break free. Maybe you just need to slow down and remember what really matters to you." The billionaire thought about her words long after she had gone back to tending to her other customers. There was something so simple, yet profound, in what she had said. It made him think about his life, his success, and what he had achieved. But he also realized how little joy he felt from it all. That night, as he walked back to his mansion, he felt different. It wasn't just the coffee or the conversation. It was the feeling of being heard, of being seen as more than just a wealthy businessman. Lily had reminded him of something he had forgotten: the importance of connection and the simple moments of life that often get lost in the pursuit of success. The billionaire returned to the diner the next day, but this time he had a different reason for coming. It wasn't just for the coffee or to get away from his usual routine. He wanted to see Lily again. After their conversation the night before, he couldn't stop thinking about her words. He had never met anyone who seemed so at ease with their life, despite the challenges they faced. It was a refreshing change from the world he was used to, where everything was calculated, planned, and controlled. As he walked through the diner door, he noticed Lily immediately. She was moving around with ease, taking orders and serving food with the same calm smile she had the day before. There was something about the way she worked, the way she interacted with everyone, that made the diner feel warmer. He didn't realize it at first, but her presence had a way of making everything around her seem a little brighter. This time, when she came over to take his order, he hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I've been thinking about our conversation yesterday," he said, trying to find the right words. "You mentioned how sometimes we get stuck in a loop. I guess I never really thought about it like that." Lily paused, her eyes meeting his. "It's easy to get caught up in the cycle. You wake up, go to work, and go through the motions, but you forget to take a step back and think about what you really want." The billionaire nodded, surprised by how much sense it made. In his world, everything was about success, power, and the next big deal. He had spent so much time focusing on achieving more that he forgot to consider if it was actually making him happy. "I think I've been so focused on my business and my wealth that I've neglected the things that actually matter," he admitted. It's hard to change that mindset when everything around you pushes you to keep going, keep achieving. Lily's smile softened. "It's not easy to change, but sometimes you have to let go of what you think you're supposed to be doing and just listen to what your heart tells you." Her words stayed with him throughout the day, and as he sat in his office, surrounded by reports and financial charts, he found himself looking out the window, thinking about Lily's advice. Could he really slow down? Could he allow himself to step off the treadmill of constant work and pressure and just be? The next time he visited the diner, he came with a different intention. Instead of just grabbing a coffee and leaving, he wanted to have a real conversation with Lily to understand more about her life and how she managed to live so peacefully despite the struggles she faced. He felt like there was so much he could learn from her, so much that his wealth and status could never teach him. "I've been thinking," he said when she brought him his coffee. "I want to hear more about your life, Lily. You've said so much in just a few words, and I can't help but wonder how you found your way through all of it." Lily looked at him, surprised by his sincerity, but she smiled, as though she had been waiting for this moment. "I've learned that life doesn't always go the way you expect, but that doesn't mean it's not worth living," she said softly. "We all have our struggles, but what matters is how we face them." I've had to make choices, just like anyone else, but I always tried to stay true to myself." As she spoke, the billionaire realized that in many ways, her life had been more meaningful than his. She had fought hard for everything she had, not through the power of money, but through perseverance and belief in herself. He knew then that there was something about her spirit, her resilience, that was different from anything he had encountered in his high-powered world. And for the first time in a long while, he felt something shift inside him. He didn't know where this new connection would take him, but he was ready to find out. The days that followed felt different to the billionaire. Each visit to the diner seemed to carry a new weight, an unexpected sense of purpose that he hadn't felt in years. He started looking forward to seeing Lily, not just because of her warm smile, but because she made him see the world differently. Every conversation with her seemed to bring new insights, new ways of looking at life and success. He realized that the things he once thought defined him, the wealth, the status, the power, were not as important as they had seemed. He had spent so much time chasing after success that he had forgotten what truly made him happy. It wasn't the boardroom meetings or the luxury that surrounded him, but the small moments, the simple conversations, and the connections with people who mattered. One evening, as they sat down for another chat, the billionaire took a deep breath before speaking. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said," he began, "about how we get stuck in our routines and forget what really matters." Lily smiled gently, not needing to say anything. She had seen the change in him. He seemed lighter, less burdened by the weight of his empire. He was beginning to see the value of the things he had overlooked for so long. She had known all along that it wasn't about wealth or status, but about finding meaning in the everyday moments that life offered. "You were right," he continued. "I've spent so many years pushing myself, building this empire, but it's never been enough. I thought if I had more, I'd be happy, but now I realize it's the simple things that bring true joy, like talking with you, for example." The words were out before he could stop them, and he felt a flush of embarrassment. But when he looked up, Lily's expression was soft, understanding. She didn't judge him. In fact, she seemed almost pleased by his honesty. "I'm glad you said that," she replied. "It's easy to get lost in the hustle and forget what's really important. But the most important thing is to feel like you're living a life that means something, not just for the world, but for you." Her words sank deep into him, and for the first time in a long time, he felt a sense of clarity. He had spent years building something that looked impressive on the outside, but it had never filled the emptiness inside him. Now, in Lily's presence, he was starting to realize that he could change his path. He could be more than just a businessman. He could be someone who truly understood what it meant to live fully. The billionaire found himself drawn to the idea of making real changes in his life. He didn't want to keep living in the same way, stuck in a cycle that no longer made sense. For the first time in ages, he felt the urge to slow down, to appreciate the simple moments, and to start thinking about what truly made him feel fulfilled. Lily, too, had her own struggles, but her resilience and positive outlook were a guiding light for him. She had a way of facing difficulties without letting them define her, and that was something he admired deeply. They had become more than just acquaintances. They were starting to become friends, each offering the other something they had been missing. Over time, the billionaire began to open up more. He shared stories about his childhood, the struggles he had faced before becoming successful, and how his drive for achievement had often led him down lonely paths. Lily listened intently, offering him advice and encouragement when he needed it most. She didn't see him as a billionaire or a powerful figure. She saw him as someone who was trying to make sense of his life, just like anyone else. In return, the billionaire admired her determination and the way she handled life with grace. She had struggled to build a life of her own, but she had done so without expecting anything in return. There was something beautiful in her resilience, something that reminded him of the values he had almost forgotten. Through their shared conversations, he started to see his life through a different lens, one where the real victories were found in the connections we make, the kindness we offer, and the strength to keep going, no matter the odds. And so, with each passing day, their bond grew stronger, with both of them learning from each other in ways neither could have predicted. As time went on, the connection between the billionaire and Lily deepened in ways neither of them had expected. What began as a simple conversation over coffee had transformed into something far more meaningful. The billionaire found himself returning to the diner more and more, not just for the food or the coffee, but for the warmth and comfort that Lily seemed to bring into his life. He was starting to notice the small things that mattered, the way she greeted each customer with a genuine smile, the patience she showed when dealing with difficult situations, and the quiet strength she displayed despite the challenges she faced in her own life. Lily, on the other hand, had always seen something more in him than just the wealth and power he carried. She admired his willingness to open up, his curiosity about life outside of his business empire, and the way he was slowly learning to look beyond the surface of things. One evening, after a particularly long day of meetings, the billionaire walked into the diner, his mind still preoccupied with the stress of his responsibilities. But as soon as he saw Lily, something shifted. She wasn't just the waitress anymore. She had become someone who offered him something he hadn't realized he needed: peace. "I'm glad you're here," Lily said, noticing the tired look on his face as he sat down. "Long day." He nodded, running a hand through his hair. "It feels like there's no end to it. The business is growing, but I can't keep up. I feel like I'm losing myself in the process." Lily didn't respond immediately. She simply listened, her gaze soft and understanding. After a moment, she spoke quietly. "Sometimes it's easy to lose track of who we really are when we're caught up in everything we think we should be doing. But you're more than your work, you know." The billionaire felt a weight lift from his shoulders, just hearing those words. He realized that she was right. He had spent so much time chasing success that he had forgotten who he was outside of his role as a businessman. In Lily, he found someone who reminded him that life wasn't just about achievements and goals. It was also about the simple moments of connection and the things that made him feel truly alive. They spent the rest of the evening talking, and for the first time in a long time, the billionaire felt like he was truly seen. He shared more about his childhood, the moments that had shaped him into the person he had become, and the fears he had about his future. Lily listened with the same gentle attention she always had, offering her perspective and helping him navigate the confusion he often felt. As they spoke, something changed in the billionaire. The more he talked to Lily, the more he realized how much he valued her presence in his life. She had become a source of calm in his storm, a reminder that there was more to life than just the pursuit of success. In turn, Lily had begun to see him in a different light as well. She admired his vulnerability, something that was rare for someone in his position. It made her feel closer to him, as though they shared something deeper than just a surface-level connection. She had always believed that everyone, no matter their background, had a story worth listening to, and the billionaire's story was no exception. One evening, as the diner began to empty out, the billionaire looked at Lily with a sense of clarity. He realized that the more he spent time with her, the more he wanted to make a change in his life. A real change. He didn't know exactly what that looked like yet, but he knew he couldn't keep going down the same path, not when he had found something so genuine, so meaningful. He took a deep breath and finally spoke what had been on his mind for days. "Lily, I think you've helped me see what's been missing in my life all along. It's not about what I've achieved or how much I have. It's about connection. It's about finding people who make you want to be better, and I think you've done that for me." Lily's eyes softened, her heart swelling with a mixture of surprise and warmth. She had never expected him to open up so completely, but in that moment, she realized just how far they had come, from casual conversations to something much more significant. Their connection, built on honesty and vulnerability, had grown into something that neither of them could ignore. As the billionaire sat there, a sense of peace settled over him. For the first time in years, he felt like he was on the right path, a path that didn't lead to more wealth or power, but to something much more fulfilling. And that, he realized, was the true prize. The days following their heart-to-heart conversation felt like a turning point for the billionaire. His mind, which had once been consumed with work, began to shift. He found himself looking forward to every visit to the diner, not just for the food or the coffee, but for the connection he had started to build with Lily. She had become more than just a part of his daily routine. She had become someone who made him think about the things that truly mattered in life. But as much as he enjoyed their conversations, there was still a sense of hesitation deep inside him. He couldn't ignore the fact that their worlds were so different. She had built her life from the ground up, relying on her resilience and hard work to survive, while he had everything handed to him on a silver platter. He knew that the life he led, and the person he was, could never be fully understood by someone like Lily. He couldn't help but wonder if their connection was just a fleeting moment, one that would eventually be overshadowed by the reality of their different worlds. One evening, as the sun began to set and the diner quieted down, the billionaire found himself at a crossroads. He had to make a decision. His feelings for Lily had grown deeper with each passing day, and he realized he couldn't just let her slip away. There was something about her that made him feel alive in ways he had never felt before, but he wasn't sure if he could ask her to be a part of his world. It was a world full of pressure, expectations, and demands that never seemed to end. He wasn't sure if he could balance both worlds, the one he had built for himself and the one he had begun to share with Lily. He sat down at the counter, his thoughts swirling. As Lily approached him with a smile, she noticed the seriousness in his expression. She set down a cup of coffee in front of him, her eyes filled with curiosity. "You seem deep in thought today," she remarked gently, her voice soft but steady. The billionaire sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I've been thinking a lot about us, I guess," he said quietly. He paused, unsure of how to continue, but knew that if he didn't speak now, the doubts would only grow. "I don't want to lose this, but I also don't know how to make it work. My life is so different from yours, Lily. You've built everything you have with your own hands, while I've just inherited mine." Lily listened carefully, her expression thoughtful. She had sensed his hesitation for a while now, but she didn't want to push him. She had always believed that the heart knew when something was worth fighting for, and she wasn't about to give up on this connection either. "I get what you're saying," she said slowly, sitting down beside him. "But you're not just your wealth, and I'm not just my job. We're more than that, aren't we? I think what we have is worth trying to figure out." The billionaire looked at her, his heart swelling with emotion. He had never met someone who saw beyond the surface, someone who truly understood him in ways that no one else had. Her words made him feel like there was a possibility, something real and tangible, in their connection. "I don't want to hold you back, Lily," he said softly, his voice sincere. "I'm afraid of dragging you into a world that's so complicated. My life isn't simple like yours, and I don't know if I can ask you to live in it." Lily reached out and placed a hand gently over his. "You're not asking me to live your life, and I'm not asking you to live mine. But maybe we can build something together, something that's just ours." The billionaire's heart raced. She was right. What they had was something special, something that didn't need to be defined by the rules of their separate worlds. It wasn't about changing who they were. It was about finding a way to come together and make it work, no matter how different their lives had been before. In that moment, the billionaire knew what he had to do. He couldn't let fear or doubt hold him back anymore. He had found someone who made him see the world differently, who reminded him that happiness wasn't about what he had or where he came from. It was about who he was with and how they made him feel. He looked into Lily's eyes, his decision clear. "I want to try," he said, his voice filled with resolve. "I want to try with you, Lily. I don't know where this will lead, but I'm ready to find out." Lily's eyes brightened with relief and joy, and without saying another word, she squeezed his hand. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, The billionaire felt a sense of peace. He wasn't alone anymore. And together, he and Lily would figure out what came next. In the days that followed, the billionaire and Lily began to navigate the complexities of their new connection. There was something incredibly natural about the way they fit together, despite the differences in their backgrounds. They found themselves spending more time together, not just at the diner, but outside of it as well. The billionaire invited Lily to some of the quieter corners of his world, sharing parts of his life he had never let anyone see before. It wasn't about wealth or grandeur. It was the little things that made him feel human, things that were simple but meaningful to him. Lily, in turn, opened up her world to him as well. She invited him to her small apartment, a modest place that had been her sanctuary for years. It wasn't luxurious, but it was hers, a reflection of her hard work and determination. They spent hours talking, laughing, and sharing their dreams with one another. The billionaire began to understand just how much resilience and strength Lily had, and it only deepened his admiration for her. There were challenges along the way, of course. The world they came from was still very different. His friends and colleagues didn't quite understand why he was spending so much time with a waitress, and they often made subtle comments that hinted at their disapproval. The billionaire, however, found himself growing more and more indifferent to their opinions. What mattered was the connection he had with Lily, not the expectations of the people around him. Lily, too, had her own moments of doubt. She couldn't help but wonder if she was just a passing phase for the billionaire, someone who would eventually fade from his life when the novelty wore off. But every time she questioned their relationship, the billionaire proved her wrong. His actions spoke louder than words. He made an effort to show her that he was serious about their future together, whether it was through small gestures or meaningful conversations. One evening, as they sat together in the park, watching the sun dip below the horizon, the billionaire took a deep breath and turned to Lily. He had something important he needed to say, something that had been on his mind for a while. "I've been thinking a lot about us," he began, his voice steady. "And I know that we come from different worlds. But I don't want that to hold us back. I want you to be a part of my life, fully, not just as someone I visit when I need a break, but as someone who is truly a part of my world." Lily looked at him, a mix of surprise and tenderness in her eyes. She had always known that their relationship was special, but hearing him say it out loud made her heart swell. She took his hand in hers, her voice soft but sure. "I want the same thing," she said. "I don't need your money or your status. I just need you to be the person I've come to know. The person who listens, who cares, who sees me for who I am, not what I do or don't do." The billionaire's heart raced at her words. He had never realized how much he needed this kind of simplicity in his life. Someone who loved him for who he truly was, not what he had or what he could give. "I think we can make it work," he said, his voice filled with conviction. "No matter what, I want to be with you, Lily. I know there will be challenges, but I believe in us. I believe in what we have." They sat together in silence for a moment, watching the sky darken as the stars began to twinkle. It was as if the world had paused for just a moment, allowing them to enjoy this feeling of certainty. The future was still unknown, but in that moment, they knew they were ready to face whatever came next, together. As time passed, they continued to grow closer, supporting each other through the ups and downs of life. The billionaire made more space for Lily in his world, and Lily, in turn, continued to show him the beauty of living with purpose and humility. They didn't need anything extravagant to feel complete. They had each other, and that was enough. Their love story, built on the foundation of mutual respect, vulnerability, and resilience, continued to evolve. They had proven to each other that the most meaningful connections were not defined by wealth or social standing, but by the bond they shared. A bond that had been forged in the quiet moments, the simple gestures, and the genuine care they had for one another. Months passed, and the bond between the billionaire and Lily only grew stronger. Their relationship, once uncertain and fragile, had transformed into something solid, something they both cherished deeply. They had faced challenges together, criticisms from those around them, moments of self-doubt. But through it all, they had stuck by each other, learning to navigate their differences and embracing what brought them closer. The billionaire found himself more at peace than he had ever been. He was no longer defined by his wealth or status, but by the person he had become through his connection with Lily. She had shown him that true happiness wasn't about power or material success. It was about the relationships you nurtured and the way you lived your life with purpose. Every day, he felt more grateful for the person she was, for the way she made him see the world through a different lens, one that was clearer, simpler, and more meaningful. For Lily, things had changed too. What had once seemed like an impossible dream, being with someone like the billionaire, had become her reality. But even more than that, she had found in him someone who truly valued her for who she was. No longer just a waitress, she had become someone who was seen and appreciated in ways she had never imagined. The billionaire didn't try to change her, to fit her into a mold. He simply embraced her, flaws and all, and saw the strength in her that others had missed. One evening, as they sat together at the diner, the same place where it had all started, the billionaire looked at Lily with a mixture of love and appreciation. He had something important he needed to say, something that had been on his heart for a long time. "I know we've been through a lot, and we've learned so much about each other," he began. "But I want to make sure that we're always moving forward together. I want to spend my life with you, not just as someone I care about, but as someone I want to build a future with." Lily's heart skipped a beat, her eyes wide with emotion. She had always known, deep down, that their connection was something special, but hearing him say it out loud made everything feel even more real. "I want that too," she said, her voice filled with certainty. "I never imagined that I would find someone like you, but now that I found you, I know we're meant to be together. Whatever life throws our way, I know we can face it." A smile spread across the billionaire's face, and he reached for her hand. "Then it's settled," he said softly. "We're in this together, for the long haul." And with that simple promise, everything fell into place. They weren't just two people from different worlds trying to make a relationship work. They were two people who had found each other at the right time. Two people who had learned the value of love, connection, and resilience. In the months that followed, they made plans for their future, small steps at first, but with the confidence that they could build something real. The billionaire took steps to reduce the pressures in his life, focusing more on what brought him joy, while Lily pursued her dreams of opening her own business, supported by the man who believed in her. Their love was no longer about making things work despite their differences. It was about creating a life that reflected both of their values, simple, honest, and full of purpose. They knew there would still be challenges ahead, but they were ready for whatever came their way, as long as they faced it together. The billionaire and Lily had built a life that was beyond their wildest expectations, not because it was perfect, but because it was real. They had found happiness in the little things, the quiet moments, the shared laughter, the support they offered each other through thick and thin. And that was all they needed to know they had something truly special. Their story had become one of resilience, of love that had withstood doubts and challenges, and of the unshakable belief that together they could face anything. And as they looked toward the future, side by side, they knew that this was just the beginning of their journey together.